Have you ever woken at 3 in the morning, heart pounding, drenched in sweat, still reeling from a terror that felt all too real? I know that feeling, that vulnerability, that fear of falling back asleep. Max Kolbe discovered something that changed all of that forever. In 1941, while a prisoner in the Auschwitz concentration camp, he developed a technique that not only eliminated his nightmares, but transformed his nights into something the guards themselves couldn't understand. They noticed Kolbe slept differently, deeply, peacefully, even there, in hell. What almost nobody knows is that this technique has a specific neurological basis. And when you understand what he did in the 15 minutes before sleep, your relationship with sleep will never be the same, because there's a crucial difference between sleeping and sleeping protected. Kolbe wasn't an ordinary man. He was a Franciscan friar who dedicated his life to understanding the mysteries of the human mind. But it was only under the most extreme conditions that he discovered the secret. Imagine for a moment, you're in a place where fear is constant, where death lurks around every corner, where hope seems to have been ripped from every breath, and yet you find peace in the darkness. This isn't just courage. It's science applied to the unconscious mind. Kolbe's technique is based on 3 fundamental pillars he called the 3 guardians of sleep. And when you activate these guardians, something extraordinary happens in your mind. First, you need to understand that nightmares aren't just bad dreams. They are manifestations of unprocessed trauma, unfaced fears, anxieties that multiply in the darkness. Kolbe realized that our unconscious mind is like a house with its doors open at night, and when you don't control who enters, anything can happen. But there's a way to close those doors, to choose exactly what your mind will process during sleep. The first guardian is what he called mental cleansing. In the 15 minutes before sleep, Kolbe did something that seemed simple, but had transformative power. He wrote, but he didn't write just anything. He wrote specifically about 3 elements, and this specific sequence is what made all the difference. First, he wrote about the day's fear, not to focus on it, but to take it out of his mind and put it on paper, as if transferring the emotional weight outside of himself. Second, he wrote about a protective image, always the same image, always in the same place on the page, creating a neurological anchor that his unconscious mind recognized as safety. Third, he wrote a sentence of gratitude, but not just any gratitude, a specific gratitude for what he had learned that day, even if it was just surviving. This simple sequence completely reprogrammed the way his mind processed information during sleep. Have you noticed how our minds more easily remember what went wrong than what went right? This isn't a coincidence. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. But when you're constantly in survival mode, especially during sleep, you attract exactly what you're trying to avoid. Kolbe understood that this mechanism needed to be reprogrammed, and writing was only the first step. The second guardian was something he called protective visualization. But it wasn't ordinary visualization. It was a technique he had learned through years of deep meditation. He closed his eyes and imagined himself in a specific place, always the same place, a childhood garden. And in this garden, he saw himself surrounded by a golden light. But here's the crucial detail. He didn't just see himself protected, he saw himself protecting others. This activated a part of the brain that modern neuroscience calls the care system. When you see yourself as a protector, your unconscious mind stops looking for threats. It goes into active safety mode. And this shift in perspective is what transformed nightmares into peaceful dreams. Kolbe practiced this visualization for exactly 7 minutes, no more, no less. He had discovered that 7 minutes was the ideal time for the mind to transition from a state of alertness to a state of protection. But the third guardian was the most powerful, and this is where Kolbe's technique differed from any other known practice. He created what he called a nighttime keyword, a specific word he repeated as he fell asleep. But it wasn't just any word. It was a word he had emotionally charged during the day, and this word became like a password for his unconscious mind. Every time a nightmare tried to form, his mind recognized this word and automatically redirected the dream to something safe. This worked because our unconscious mind doesn't differentiate between reality and imagination. It only responds to the emotional patterns we create. Kolbe had created a pattern of protection. But there's something even deeper to this technique, something he discovered only after months of practice. The keyword didn't just protect against nightmares. It began to attract dreams with messages, dreams that brought insights, solutions, even premonitions, as if his unconscious mind, finally secure, began to reveal its true potential. Other prisoners began to notice. Kolbe didn't just sleep well, he woke up differently, stronger, clearer, as if sleep, instead of just resting his body, was renewing his soul. And when some prisoners asked him to teach the technique, something extraordinary happened. It worked for everyone. It didn't matter what the trauma was. It didn't matter how intense the nightmares were. The Three Guardians technique worked consistently. But there was a crucial detail in how Kolbe taught. He said the technique only worked if you believed you deserved to sleep peacefully. And this belief wasn't something you simply decided to have. It was something you built, night after night, through practice. Each time you applied the Three Guardians, you were telling your unconscious mind, I deserve peace, I deserve protection, I deserve dreams that strengthen me. And your unconscious mind, finally, began to believe. Kolbe called this reprogramming of deservingness. And without this reprogramming, no technique would work completely. That's why some people try various nightmare techniques and nothing works. It's not because the techniques don't work. It's because deep down, they don't believe they deserve to sleep peacefully. But when you combine the Three Guardians technique with the reprogramming of deservingness, something magical happens. Your nightmares don't just disappear. They're replaced by dreams that strengthen you, dreams that inspire you, dreams that connect you with a more powerful version of yourself. Kolbe documented all of this in letters he secretly sent out of the camp, letters that were only discovered decades later. And in these letters, he explained not only the technique, but the science behind it. He had discovered that our unconscious mind is like a garden. If you don't intentionally plant seeds, weeds grow on their own. Nightmares are the weeds. But when you plant seeds of protection, peace, and purpose, your unconscious mind transforms into something completely different. This explains why some people naturally have peaceful dreams, while others are tormented by nightmares. It's not luck, it's mental programming. And the good news is, this programming can be changed completely. Kolbe proved this in the most dramatic way possible. In conditions where nightmares seemed inevitable, he created an oasis of mental peace. But there's an aspect of the technique that he only revealed in his last letters, something he called the Fourth Guardian. This Fourth Guardian wasn't something you did before bed. It was something that happened automatically when the first Three Guardians were completely integrated. And when this Fourth Guardian activated, you didn't just stop having nightmares, you started having dreams that seemed to connect you with something greater. Dreams that brought answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Kolbe described this as sleeping with purpose. And when you sleep with purpose, your entire life changes. Because sleep isn't just rest. It's reprogramming. It's healing. It's a connection with parts of yourself that only reveal themselves in the darkness. But for this to happen, you need to prepare your mind. You need to create the right conditions. You need to activate the Guardians. And this brings us to the most important moment of Kolbe's discovery. He realized that the technique didn't just work to eliminate nightmares. It worked to completely transform the quality of sleep. And when the quality of sleep changes, the quality of life changes. People who applied the Three Guardians technique began to wake up with more energy, with more mental clarity, with more courage to face challenges, as if protected sleep not only rested the body, but strengthened the soul. This happens because when you sleep without fear, your unconscious mind can finally do the work it's supposed to do, process experiences, consolidate learning, integrate memories, and most importantly, connect you with your inner wisdom. Kolbe discovered that we all have an inner wisdom, a voice that knows exactly what we need to do, how we need to act, what decisions to make. But this voice only manifests when our mind is in a state of deep security, and this only happens during protected sleep. That's why some people wake up with insights, with solutions, with clear directions. It's not coincidence. It's the result of sleeping with the Guardians activated. But there's an even deeper secret, something Kolbe only discovered after months of consistent practice. The Three Guardians technique didn't just change the quality of sleep. It changed the quality of dreams. And when you change the quality of dreams, You change the quality of your reality, because our unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what we experience sleeping and what we experience awake. It only responds to emotional patterns. When you dream of protection, your unconscious mind learns protection. When you dream of courage, your unconscious mind learns courage. When you dream of peace, your unconscious mind learns peace. And these learnings manifest in your waking life. Kolbe had discovered a way to use sleep as a tool for personal transformation, and this discovery went far beyond simply eliminating nightmares. But for you to completely understand the power of this technique, I need to tell you about what happened on the night Kolbe applied it for the first time. It was July of 1941. Kolbe had arrived at Auschwitz just 3 days before, and that night, he was terrorized. He had witnessed things that no human being should witness. He had seen people brutally murdered. He had smelled the stench of death in the air. And when he lay down on his wooden bed, surrounded by hundreds of other prisoners, the fear was so intense that he couldn't even close his eyes. But it was at that precise moment that he decided to apply something he had learned years before, during his deep meditations. He took a small piece of paper that he had managed to hide from the guards, and he began to write. First, he wrote about the fear, not to focus on it, but to get it out of his mind. I'm afraid of dying here. I'm afraid of not being able to help people. I'm afraid that all this will be in vain. Then he wrote about the image of protection. I see myself in my childhood garden. I see myself surrounded by a golden light. I see myself protecting other prisoners with this light. And finally, he wrote gratitude. I am grateful for having known true love. I am grateful for having the opportunity to serve. I am grateful for still being alive to make a difference. After writing that, he closed his eyes and began the protective visualization. 7 minutes in the childhood garden, surrounded by the golden light, seeing himself as a protector of others. And finally, he chose the nighttime keyword, love. He repeated this word as he fell asleep. Love, love, love. And something extraordinary happened. For the first time since arriving at the camp, he slept soundly, and instead of nightmares, he had a dream that changed everything. In the dream, he saw himself helping other prisoners, teaching them to find peace, even in hell. And when he woke up, he knew exactly what he needed to do. This was the birth of the 3 Guardians technique. But the most impressive thing is that, on the following nights, other prisoners began to notice that Kolbe slept differently. While most woke up screaming, sweating, terrified, he woke up in peace, calm, strong. And when some prisoners asked how he could do it, he began to teach the technique. First, he taught 5 people, then 10, then 20. And in all these people, the technique worked. Not only did the nightmares stop, the quality of sleep improved, emotional resilience increased, hope was reborn. Kolbe had discovered something that went far beyond a mere technique for nightmares. He had discovered a way to use sleep as a tool for healing and transformation. But there's a deeper aspect to this discovery. Kolbe realized that when you sleep protected, you don't just change your nighttime experience, you change your life experience. Because sleep is the time when your unconscious mind processes everything you've lived through during the day. And if that processing happens in a state of fear, you wake up weaker. But if it happens in a state of protection, you wake up stronger. It's as if each night is an opportunity for rebirth. And the 3 Guardians ensured that this rebirth happened in the right direction. Kolbe documented specific cases of people who applied the technique and saw dramatic changes, not only in their sleep, but in their entire lives. There was a prisoner who had suffered from nightmares for years. He applied the technique for a week, and not only did the nightmares stop, but he began to have dreams that inspired him to keep living. There was a woman who arrived at the camp, terrified every night. She applied the technique for 2 weeks and started dreaming of her family, which gave her the strength to continue. There was a man who had completely lost hope. He applied the technique for a month and began to dream of the future, which helped him survive until the end of the war. All these cases had something in common. The technique not only eliminated nightmares, but transformed sleep into a source of healing and renewal. And this brings us to the deepest secret of Kolbe's discovery. He realized that nightmares aren't just bad dreams, they are symptoms of a mind that doesn't feel safe, and when you create inner security, nightmares naturally disappear. But this inner security isn't something you can simply decide to have. It's something you build, night after night, through the consistent practice of the three guardians. And the more you practice, the deeper this security becomes, until it becomes part of your identity. Kolbe called this the identity of protected sleep. And when you develop this identity, sleeping becomes an act of courage, not of fear. Because you know that, regardless of what happens during the day, you have a safe haven, a place where you can rest, heal, and renew your strength. And this refuge isn't external, it's internal. It's a construction of your own mind. That's what makes Kolbe's technique so powerful. It doesn't depend on external circumstances. It works in any situation, no matter how extreme. Kolbe proved this in the most dramatic way possible. In Auschwitz, he found peace in sleep. And if it worked there, it can work anywhere. But for you to fully understand the power of this technique, I need to tell you about what happened the day Kolbe first taught the three guardians to a larger group of prisoners. It was August of 1941. Kolbe had been practicing the technique for a month, and the results were so impressive that other prisoners began to seek him out. That night, he gathered 23 people in a corner of the barrack, and he began to teach. First, he explained the science behind the technique, how the unconscious mind works, why nightmares happen, how to create inner security. Then, he taught the first guardian mental cleansing through writing. Each person wrote about their fear of the day, their protective image, and their specific gratitude. Next, he taught the second guardian protective visualization, 7 minutes in their safe place, seeing themselves as protected. And finally, he taught the third guardian the nighttime keyword. Each person chose a word that represented security for them. And the next morning, something extraordinary happened. 22 of the 23 people reported that they had slept better. 19 reported that they hadn't had nightmares. 16 reported that they had had peaceful dreams. And the only person who didn't see immediate results was someone who had suffered very severe trauma. But even that person saw improvements after a week of practice. Kolbe had discovered something that would forever change how we understand sleep and dreams. But the most impressive thing is that the technique didn't just work for nightmares. It worked for any kind of sleep disorder related to fear and anxiety. People who suffered from insomnia began to sleep more easily. People who woke up tired began to wake up renewed. People who were afraid of the dark began to see the night as an ally. And all this happened because the three guardians created a structure of security that allowed the unconscious mind to do its natural work of healing and renewal. Kolbe had discovered that we all have an internal healing mechanism, but this mechanism only works when we feel safe, and the three guardians created that safety. But there's an even deeper aspect to the technique, something that Kolbe only discovered after months of consistent practice with dozens of people. The technique of the three guardians didn't just change the quality of sleep, it changed the quality of waking life. People who applied the technique began to feel braver during the day, more optimistic, more resilient, as if protected sleep not only rested the body but strengthened the spirit. This happens because when you sleep without fear, your unconscious mind can finally access internal resources that are normally blocked by anxiety. Resources like creativity, intuition, courage, compassion, wisdom, and these resources manifest in your waking life, making it richer, fuller, more meaningful. Kolbe had discovered that sleep is not just a period of rest, it's a period of spiritual renewal. And when you protect this period, you protect your capacity for renewal. But for this renewal to happen completely, there's a fourth element that needs to be activated. An element that Kolbe only discovered after months of practice, an element he called the fourth guardian. And this fourth guardian is what transforms the technique from simply eliminating nightmares to something far more powerful, something that can completely change the trajectory of your life. But before revealing the fourth guardian, I need to tell you about what happened on the most difficult night of Kolbe's life, the night that tested his technique to the extreme. It was October of 1941. Kolbe had witnessed something so traumatic that even he, with all his mental preparation, felt he might not be able to apply the technique. That night, lying on his wooden bunk, he felt the horror he'd witnessed, threatening to invade his dreams. He was at the edge, and it was in that moment he discovered the deepest secret of his technique, a secret that would forever change how he understood the power of protected sleep. And it's this secret, that will determine whether you simply eliminate nightmares or completely transform your life through sleep. That October night, Kolbe lay in the darkness, when he realized something that would change everything. He had applied the three guardians perfectly. He'd written about the fear, visualized protection, repeated his keyword, but for the first time, since developing the technique, he still felt fear. That's when he understood. The three guardians weren't enough for extreme trauma. He needed something deeper, something that touched the root of the fear. And it was in this moment of utter vulnerability that he discovered the fourth guardian. He realized he was trying to protect himself from fear, when he should have been transforming himself through fear, and this shift in perspective changed everything. Instead of repeating love to push away the fear, he started repeating love to embrace the fear, to transform it, to use it as fuel for something greater. And that night, he didn't just sleep peacefully. He had the most powerful dream of his life. In the dream, he saw himself not just protected, but transformed, not just safe, but brave, not just at peace, but full of purpose. And when he woke up, he knew he'd discovered the final secret. The fourth guardian was the transformation of fear into purpose, and this discovery changed not only the technique, but how he understood the power of sleep. Kolbe realized that sleep isn't just a period of rest, it's a period of spiritual alchemy, a moment where you can transform any experience into wisdom, any trauma into strength, any fear into purpose. But for this alchemy to happen, you need to be willing to embrace what you're trying to avoid. And that's what the fourth guardian does. It transforms resistance into acceptance, fear into courage, trauma into wisdom. Kolbe tested this discovery with other prisoners, and the results were even more impressive. People who applied only the three guardians eliminated nightmares, but people who applied the fourth guardian transformed nightmares into power dreams. The difference was dramatic. The first group slept well. The second group awoke transformed. And this transformation wasn't just internal, it was visible, tangible. People who applied the fourth guardian started inspiring other prisoners to find ways to help, to discover reserves of courage they didn't even know they had, as if protected sleep not only healed trauma, but revealed hidden potential. Kolbe had discovered that we all have hidden potential, but this potential only reveals itself when we stop running from our fears and start transforming them. And sleep is the perfect time for this transformation, because it's when our conscious mind isn't interfering, it's when our unconscious mind can do its deepest work. But for this work to happen, you need to create the right conditions. You need to activate all four guardians, and now I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that. First, in the first guardian, mental cleansing. 15 minutes before bed, take a piece of paper and write 3 things. First, about the day's fear. Not to focus on it, but to get it out of your mind. Would be specific, would be honest, would be complete. Second, about your protective image. Always the same image, always in the same place on the page. It could be a place from your childhood, a sacred place, an imaginary place. The important thing is that it's always the same and to create a neurological anchor. Third, about a specific gratitude, not a generic gratitude, but something specific you learned that day, even if it's small, even if it's hard to find. This writing sequence reprograms your mind to process the day constructively, not destructively. Second, the second guardian, protective visualization. Close your eyes and go to your safe place. Spend exactly 7 minutes in that place. But don't just see yourself protected, see yourself protecting others. This activates your brain's care system, which is incompatible with nightmares. Third, the third guardian, the nighttime keyword. Choose a word that represents safety for you. It could be love, peace, protection, courage. The important thing is that it's a word that resonates deeply in your soul. Repeat this word as you fall asleep. Let it be the last thing on your conscious mind before you enter sleep. And fourth, the fourth guardian, transforming fear into purpose. When a fear arises, don't try to push it away. Embrace it. Ask, what is this fear trying to teach me? How can I use this experience to become stronger? How can I transform this fear into purpose? And then, visualize yourself transformed through this experience, not in spite of it, but through it. That's the complete Four Guardians technique. But there's a crucial aspect that determines whether the technique will work for you or not. Kolbe discovered that the technique only works completely when you believe you deserve to sleep peacefully. And this belief isn't something you simply decide to have. It's something you build through consistent practice. Every night you apply the Guardians, you're telling your unconscious mind, I deserve peace. I deserve protection. I deserve transformation. And over time, your unconscious mind begins to believe. And when it believes, the technique becomes automatic. Kolbe called this installing the protected sleep identity. And when this identity is installed, you no longer need to fight nightmares, and they simply stop happening because your unconscious mind knows you're someone who sleeps peacefully, and it does everything to maintain that identity. But for this installation to happen, you need to be consistent. Kolbe applied the technique every night for 6 months, and it was only after this period that it became completely automatic. During those 6 months, there were nights when the technique worked perfectly, and there were nights when it worked partially, and there were some nights when it barely worked. But Kolbe never gave up, and gradually, the technique became stronger, more effective, more automatic, until it reached a point where he no longer needed to consciously apply it. His unconscious mind had learned to create protection automatically, and when that happened, something extraordinary began to unfold. Kolbe started having dreams that seemed to connect him to something larger, dreams that brought profound insights, dreams that inspired him to act in ways he never imagined, and these dreams began to manifest in his waking life. Kolbe started finding ways to help fellow prisoners he didn't even know were possible. He began uncovering reserves of courage he didn't know he possessed. He began feeling a connection to something sacred that transcended even that brutal reality. And other prisoners began to notice. Kolbe wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. Even in Auschwitz, he had found a way to flourish. And it all started with a simple decision, deciding that he deserved to sleep peacefully. This brings us to the most important point of this entire story. The technique of the Four Guardians isn't just about eliminating nightmares. It's about reclaiming your right to protected sleep. It's about deciding that you deserve peace, even when the world around you is in chaos. And when you make that decision and act consistently based on it, your entire life changes. Because protected sleep isn't just about the hours you spend sleeping. It's about how you feel when you wake up. It's about the energy you bring to the day. It's about the courage you have to face challenges. Kolbe proved that even in the most extreme conditions, it's possible to create an inner sanctuary of peace and protection. And if it worked for him, it can work for you. But there's a final secret Kolbe discovered, something he only revealed in his final letters. The technique of the Four Guardians doesn't just protect you during sleep. It transforms your relationship with fear in all areas of life. When you learn to transform fear into purpose during sleep, you automatically begin to do so during the day. Situations that once paralyzed you begin to inspire you. Challenges that once intimidated you begin to strengthen you. Fears that once controlled you begin to liberate you, because you've developed a new way of relating to fear, a way that's not based on avoidance, but on transformation. And this new way of relating to fear changes everything. Kolbe had discovered that fear isn't the enemy. The avoidance of fear is the enemy. When you learn to embrace fear, to work with it, to transform it, you discover that it contains powerful gifts. Fear contains information about what's important to you. Fear contains energy that can be channeled for higher purposes. Fear contains opportunities for growth that don't exist anywhere else. But to access these gifts, you need to stop running from fear and start dancing with it. And sleep is the perfect place to learn this dance. Because during sleep, you can practice without consequences. You can experiment, you can transform. And when you master this dance during sleep, you automatically bring it into your waking life. Kolbe lived this in practice. He transformed the fear of dying in Auschwitz into the purpose of serving other prisoners. He transformed the fear of darkness into dancing with the shadow. He transformed the fear of the unknown into openness to the sacred. And it all started with a simple technique applied before bed. But for you to fully understand the power of this technique, I need to tell you about what happened on Kolbe's last night in Auschwitz. It was July of 1941. Kolbe had offered himself to die in place of another prisoner, and that night, he knew it would be his last opportunity to apply the technique. But instead of using the technique to find peace in the face of death, he used it for something far more powerful. He used it to transform his own death into a gift to humanity. That night, he didn't write about fear. He wrote about love. He didn't visualize protection, and he visualized transformation. He didn't repeat a safety word. He repeated a word of surrender. And when he fell asleep for the last time, he didn't just sleep peacefully, he slept with purpose. And when he awoke, he knew exactly what he needed to do, not just to die with dignity, but to die in a way that would inspire others for generations. And that's what he did. Kolbe died applying the technique of the four guardians. He transformed his own death into a teaching about the power of love over fear. And today, decades later, his technique continues to transform lives around the world, because he proved that no matter how extreme the circumstances, it's always possible to find a way to transform fear into purpose, and that possibility is available to you today, now. All you need to do is decide that you deserve to sleep peacefully, and then consistently apply the technique of the four guardians. But first, mental cleansing. Write about your fears, your protections, your gratitude. Second, protective visualization. 7 minutes in your safe place, seeing yourself as protected. Third, the nighttime keyword, a word that represents safety, repeated as you fall asleep. Fourth, the transformation of fear into purpose. Embrace the fear, don't run from it. Ask what it's trying to teach you. Use the experience to grow. And most importantly, believe that you deserve to sleep peacefully. When you do this consistently, something extraordinary happens. Your nightmares don't just disappear, they are replaced by powerful dreams. Dreams that inspire you, dreams that strengthen you, dreams that connect you with your own inner wisdom, and this inner wisdom manifests in your waking life. You begin to make wiser decisions, to react to challenges with more courage, to find purpose in experiences that once paralyzed you, because you've developed a new relationship with fear, a relationship based on transformation, not avoidance. And this new relationship changes everything. Kolbe proved this in the most dramatic way possible. In Auschwitz, he found a way to flourish, and he left a legacy that continues to transform lives to this day. His technique isn't just about eliminating nightmares, it's about reclaiming your personal power. It's about deciding that you are stronger than your fears. It's about discovering that you have within you everything you need to transform any experience into wisdom. And it all starts with a simple decision, deciding that you deserve to sleep peacefully. Make that decision, apply the technique, be consistent, and prepare to discover a power you didn't even know you had, the power to transform fear into purpose, the power to find peace in any circumstance, the power to sleep protected, regardless of what's happening around you. This power has always been within you. Kolbe simply discovered a way to activate it, and now you know too. The only question that remains is, are you willing to use it? Because when you use this power, you don't just change your experience of sleep, but you change your experience of life. And that's what Kolbe discovered that first night in Auschwitz, when he decided he deserved to sleep peacefully, even in hell. That peace isn't something you find in circumstances. It's something you create within yourself. And when you create peace within yourself, you discover you're stronger than any fear, more resilient than any trauma, more powerful than any nightmare. You discover you're capable of transforming any darkness into light. And this discovery isn't just about sleeping better, it's about living better. It's about awakening to who you truly are. Someone who deserves to sleep in peace. Someone who has the power to transform fear into purpose. Someone who can find light in any darkness. Kolbe knew this, and now you know this too. The only question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Because knowledge without action is just information, but knowledge with action is transformation. And transformation is what happens when you decide you deserve to sleep peacefully every night for the rest of your life, without exception. Because you've discovered the secret Kolbe discovered that first night in Auschwitz, that peace isn't something you find, it's something you create. And when you create peace in your sleep, you create peace in your life. And when you create peace in your life, you discover you're capable of anything. including transforming nightmares into power dreams. And that's what happens when you apply Kolbe's technique of the four guardians. You don't just eliminate nightmares, you eliminate the fear that created them. And when you eliminate fear, you unleash love. And when you unleash love, you unleash your true power. The power to sleep protected, the power to wake up renewed, the power to live transformed. That's Kolbe's legacy. And now, it's your legacy too. Use it well, starting tonight.